tell me a little bit about kind of the decision, how you guys came to that in terms of when you decided to release the guidelines and what led you to that.
Well, I think certainly the discussion nationally of NLI in the collegiate scene, I think in the high school world across the nation, it's been a topic of discussion for 2 years, because I think we all realized it would come into the high school ranks at some time. So there was really a sense of let's not bury our head in the sand. Let's get out in front of it, and let's give our families and our schools a space that they feel comfortable in dealing with this when it does come.
Yeah. And what was the process in coming up with the guidelines?
Well, Tom Keating, and who's executive director of the Iowa High School Athletic Association, and Boone and I, we visited with other state executive directors all over the country. It was a topic at the national meetings. We both had it reviewed by our boards of control and boards of directors, and discussion ensued there. And then we started talking about it at our AD meetings that are conducted throughout the fall. And even we shared it with our representative councils just to get some feedback. So it's not something that suddenly appeared, there was input and things, but we decided to put it update on our webs. Sorry, my throat is updated on our webs sites and push it out to the membership.
Yeah, and prior to this, prior to this, did you have kind of coaches and families and school administrators kind of asking you guys about this kind of throughout before you actually released the guidelines? And is that kind of what helped you guys spur the the feeling of, hey, we need to put something out there so we can kind of help answer these questions?
I think that, we didn't have a lot of specific inquiries like, we have this athlete and they want to do this. We didn't have that. We had some general interest in what it might mean, because people look at this at NLI through the collegiate lens. They think of all the Division I athletes who are getting this, and they think about the programs that Alabama has set up, or those, and that it's just not comparable at all. Because in reality, most of the things we're talking about in a situation for a high school athlete have been permissible, right? They've always been able to have a camp with their name on it. They've always, they've been able to be a model. Being a model is using your name, image, and likeness to, they've been able to, create a social media presence and get paid for that. But now in the space that we're talking about, one of our concerns was, how do we protect them so that if they are that elite athlete and they want to go on to college, that they don't do something during high school that would jeopardize that opportunity. So it very much was, and if you look at some of the guidance, it is, hey, get a lawyer, right? Hey, read anything that is given to you. Don't just sign it. But in essence, most, the pay for play is still illegal. It's you still have to be an amateur. You still have to follow our eligibility rules and our gift laws, and how, if you go out and run a race, you can't get paid $25,000 for it, So all of those things were already in place. This is just a little more clarification as we enter into this phase, and hopefully we're ahead of the game by doing so.
Yeah, and one of the things that I also saw on there was kind of the not being able to use kind of anything affiliated with your school. Can you kind of explain why that those kind of set rules came into play?
Yeah, because then you're not really using your name or your image. You're using the school and your mascot or their school facilities. And so you're connecting back to a school that gives you value, when it's supposed to be your own personal value that you are out selling. So, schools have logos and mascots, and they own the rights to those, And so if you're going to go out and put that logo on a t-shirt, that school's going to need to be compensated. So that's why those sorts of things are separated out, because this is supposed to be an individual athlete's name, image, and likeness that is being used to their benefit, not the school helping increase the value of that benefit.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think a big misconception that I think a lot of us had, even in the media, in the way I saw it reported, even the way I reported on it last night, just because I didn't know until today. But I think a lot of people think that because you guys in the association both set out these guidelines, that you were the ones who said this is now allowed. But really, as you kind of elaborated earlier, it was always technically allowed. But now it was just never really brought up because NIL wasn't really a thing up until the last couple of years. So really, you guys are just essentially providing the guidelines in which you are recommending that these students operate under.
Right. So we have not created an NLI program. Right. We have not created anything. We have not issued a policy. We have not said the penalty if you don't do something is such. You know, because we already have a penalty if you no longer are an amateur in our books. So this is really, when we say it's guidance, that's what it is. It's not, hey, now you can have NLI, everyone. You've always had the ability to have it, right? So, but, you know, to be fair, I understand where it comes from, because, you know, for so long, the NLI discussion was that you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. And so they just assume nobody could do it, even high schoolers, right? So again, it's looking through that collegiate lens. Well, now they're allowed, so now you're allowed. And it's just different. It's not an apples to apples comparison at all.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, you know, you guys in releasing these guidelines, it was because you really wanted to kind of get ahead of the curve and really it's out there, you know. So there's no sense of trying to kind of downplay it or ignore it. Just how important is that for you guys to it's regardless of, you know, how you feel about it, just being able to kind of provide the most information and protection for these athletes and their families and the schools in terms of how they should handle it. I mean, how important is that for you guys being able to do that?
You know, I think that the NIL and has generated a lot of companies, individuals who are willing to speak with families about opportunities or try to educate them. And of course, there's a cost to the families for that, right? Or there's a cost to the schools for that. And so we're free, you know, we're free. We're not going to charge. So to put out some guidelines with, you know, really some best practices and some things to think about, and, you know, hey, this is really, you know, you don't need to pay someone to tell you not to use the school logo, right? You know, we really just felt, because all of those sort of secondary businesses that are being developed because of NLI for our high school kids, that it was best to get our information out to start the thought process, to start the discussion, and really to have something for our schools to give to parents when the question is asked.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything else that you would like to add on this topic? I think we pretty much covered everything. I mean, I guess my last question would be, you know, is there going to be an evaluation process, maybe, I don't know, say 6 months down the line, a year down the line, to kind of evaluate what worked, what didn't, and kind of, have you guys talked about that yet?
Yeah, I think, you know, anytime you're looking at something like this, there's sort of a moving target to it. A good example would be, you know, there are several states who have laws on the books about this, you know, and Iowa doesn't. And they may or they may not. But if they ever do write legislation for this, then these guidelines are going to have to be changed to reflect the new laws. So it's just, you know, right now this reflects guidance on what we know, and as it changes and evolves, we can change with it. And so that's why it was important to get it out. But you know, it probably never will just stay the same forever.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know that wasn't my last one, but you kind of brought up an interesting point, because I know there's been a lot of talk of people wanting to get NIL regulated on the federal level. But say that happens, I'm wondering if they'll make it college specific or if they'll kind of make it broad. Because if it is college specific, does that impact you guys, or how would that impact you guys?
You know, if they keep it in the collegiate sphere, I don't know that it would. Certainly some things would trickle down, I think, to the high school level. But you know, the difference, one of the real difference, because this is really about an athlete's eligibility, right, to participate, both at the collegiate level and at the high school level. Well, if you're a Division I NCAA athlete, everybody at every school operates under the same rules. But the Iowa eligibility rules are different than the Illinois eligibility rules, and those are different than the Missouri eligibility rules. So I'm not sure, because each high school organization in each state has different rules, how one national rule, you know, or a law could guide it. So if they write it strictly in the collegiate zone, you know, I don't know how much of it will really be applicable to the high school.